Waverly Hills Sanatorium, located in Louisville, Kentucky, is known as one of the most haunted places in the United States. This foreboding Gothic-style structure has a long and dark history. While it was originally constructed as a place of healing, it has since gained a reputation for being a hotbed of paranormal activity, attracting ghost hunters and curious visitors from around the world. Its history is deeply intertwined with the tuberculosis epidemic of the 20th century, a time marked by suffering and death, which some believe has left a lasting mark on the building. The story of Waverly Hills begins in the year 1883, when Major Thomas H. Hayes purchased the land where the sanitarium would later be built. At the time, tuberculosis was rampant in the United States, particularly in the damp, swampy areas of Kentucky. Hayes needed a local school for his daughters and hired a woman named Lizzie Lee Harris to teach them. Harris named the school Waverly School after her favorite series of novels, the Waverly novels by Sir Walter Scott, and Hayes liked the name so much that he decided to name his property Waverly Hill. Tuberculosis, also known as the White Plague, was a deadly disease that had no known cure at the time. It was highly contagious and caused severe respiratory problems, often leading to a slow, painful death. Louisville's humid climate made it a breeding ground for the disease, and by the early 20th century, tuberculosis had reached epidemic proportions. To combat the spread of the disease, the Jefferson County government decided to build a sanitarium on the land purchased from Hayes. In the year 1910, the first structure, a 2-story wooden building, was completed. It could house about 40 to 50 tuberculosis patients. However, as the epidemic worsened, it became clear that a larger facility was needed. Plans were drawn up for a much larger, more permanent structure, and in the year 1926, the main building of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, which still stands today, was completed. This massive 5-story building could house up to 400 patients and was considered state-of-the-art for its time. Waverly Hills was designed to be a self-contained community. The sanitarium had its own zip code, post office, water treatment facility, and farmland. Patients who were able-bodied helped with chores and grew their own food. Since tuberculosis patients were quarantined from the outside world, Waverly Hills was essentially its own small town. The treatment for tuberculosis was brutal by modern standards. Patients were often exposed to fresh air therapy, meaning they were forced to sit outside in open-air porches, even in the cold of winter. It was believed that fresh air and rest were the key to recovery. In extreme cases, patients underwent risky surgeries, such as the removal of ribs and lungs, in an attempt to give their remaining lungs space to expand. The mortality rate was high, with some estimates suggesting that tens of thousands of people died within Waverly's walls. One of the most infamous aspects of Waverly Hills is the so-called body chute, or the death tunnel. As death became a common occurrence, the sanitarium had to find a way to discreetly transport bodies from the hospital to prevent lowering the morale of the patients. The solution was a tunnel that ran from the hospital down a hill to the nearby railroad tracks. Dead bodies were placed on a motorized rail system and moved through the tunnel to be transported out of sight. This tunnel has become a central focus of many ghost stories and paranormal investigations. Some claim to hear footsteps, whispers, and see shadowy figures in the dark corridor, and the tunnel is believed to be one of the most haunted spots on the property. By the 1940s, the development of antibiotics, particularly ceftriaxone, drastically reduced the mortality rate of tuberculosis, and as a result, sanitariums like Waverly Hills became less necessary. In the year 1961, Waverly Hills closed as a tuberculosis hospital. However, the building was not abandoned. It reopened the following year as Woodhaven Geriatric Center, a nursing home for elderly patients with dementia and severe mental illness. The conditions at Woodhaven Geriatric Center were far from ideal. Understaffing and overcrowding led to neglect, and there were numerous allegations of patient mistreatment and abuse. By the year 1982, Woodhaven was closed by the state of Kentucky due to budget cuts and reports of substandard care. After Woodhaven closed, the building sat vacant for many years, and during this time, it became a popular spot for vandals and thrill seekers. Urban legends about Waverly Hills began to spread, many of which centered around its haunted reputation. Locals told stories of ghostly apparitions, strange sounds, and unexplained phenomena. Trespassers would sneak into the building at night, and many claimed to have experienced paranormal activity. One of the most persistent legends is that of room 502. According to the story, a nurse hanged herself in this room in the 1920s after learning that she was pregnant out of wedlock. Some versions of the story suggest that the pregnancy was a result of an affair with a doctor, and when the nurse was rejected, she ended her life. Another version of the legend claims that a second nurse also jumped to her death from the window of room 502. While there are no official records to confirm these deaths, the legend persists, and room 502 remains a focal point for paranormal investigators. In 2001, Waverly Hills was purchased by Charlie and Tina Mattingly, who have since worked to preserve and restore the historic building. The Mattingleys recognized the public's fascination with the sanitarium's haunted history, and they began offering ghost tours. These tours have become extremely popular, with thousands of visitors flocking to Waverly Hills each year in the hopes of experiencing paranormal activity. The Mattingleys' long-term goal is to convert Waverly Hills into a historical and paranormal research center, while also preserving its history as a tuberculosis sanitarium. In recent years, they have opened parts of the building for historical tours, offering a glimpse into the past while acknowledging the tragic and haunting legacy of the hospital. Waverly Hills Sanitarium stands as a monument to a dark period in medical history, but it has also become a symbol of the unknown and the paranormal. The spirits that are said to roam its halls serve as a reminder of the thousands of lives lost to tuberculosis, as well as the suffering that took place within its walls. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, Waverly Hills' haunted reputation continues to captivate the imagination, drawing both historians and ghost hunters alike. The building's eerie atmosphere, combined with its tragic history, makes it a compelling location for those seeking to explore the boundaries between life, death, and what may lie beyond.